What's up everybody, hope you're having an amazing day so far. I'm your host Phil, and today's video, I want to compare the brand new ToneX release 1.10 against the Neural Amp Modeler. We're going to check out how accurate the ToneX actually has become in comparison to the Neural Amp Modeler. So let's roll that into a clip and then get straight into work. Hey, what's up everybody? Thank you for tuning in today's video. Hope you're having an amazing day so far and glad you are tuning in. I want to first start this video off by saying a huge sorry to the people who are regularly watching my channel. I do owe you a lot of content, but I have been so burnt out, to be honest, and I didn't want to step into the camera, do like a dramatic video where I'm talking about all the things which are coming up my mind. But basically, it's just a culmination of a lot of different things happening in my private life, some which are really cool and I'm really excited about, but they just take my time. For example, we are here in this space currently recording the next album for my band Tempest. That just takes a lot of time. As you can see, I have taken away the entire wall of amps and gear and stuff like that, which I had here previously. I now got a fairly generic but really cool setup going on over here. And to be honest, it kind of freed up my mind a little bit to become more creative. I mean, it's such a cliche that as soon as you limit yourself to a certain extent, you get more creative, but there is some truth to that. And yeah, I'm really having a good time over here with some cool stuff, which I will occasionally turn into videos, but for now I have decided that I'm, putting it a little bit on the back burner and only doing videos when I really feel about them and I really want to do that. And today is one of those days because ToneX version 1.10 has been released. I'm really excited for this one because this allows a lot of different things which people were asking for, like batch processing. You can also archive the ToneX captures which you do and then train them on another PC. So you got this portability thing going on. And one thing which they, advertise with is that the modeling has become better, especially for high gain guitars. And I'm super curious if that really lives up to that promise over here. Now, to be fair, I'm not going to do an old version, new version comparison. That's not what I'm here for. I directly uploaded the upload, but I want to compare it to the Neural Amp Modeler. Now, there were some other videos which I made in the past where I was comparing Neural Amp Modeler to ToneX and to Kemper and to STL Tones Tracer. So that will be a reference for how V1 worked. Let's call it just V1 and this being V2. And now I want to just check how ToneX V2 is working on that one. The processing is a little bit different. The training file is a little bit shorter with a little bit more, let's say, wacky noises similar to the Neural Amp Modeler. There are so many cool videos which describe the process way better than I could. I'm going to refer to that one. I personally find that the video from Jason Saditis has done a very good job in explaining that one, even though I had my fair differences with him in the past. Credit where credit is due. He made a great video on that subject in explaining how all of that works. And I'm just here now kind of showcasing the differences which I found. We're eventually going to run into a Null-Test. I have no idea how great, how scientific that's going to be, that Null-Test over here. But yeah, let's just dive straight into it. Okay, I now got this Reaper session over here prepared and set up. Let me explain what we're running through so that you kind of get a grasp on what's going on over here. This track over here, which is the yellow track, which is currently soloed, that is my plugin track. On that particular track, I got all of my capture technology going on. ToneX, Neural Amp Modeler with a localized training setup, and Neural Amp Modeler with a model which I trained on Tone 3000, just to check if there is any difference between the two of them. But I can already say they're absolutely negligible in that regard. Okay. Let's go back to ToneX and then close this one over here. And on these other tracks, that's my reamping chain of the actual chain, which we're going to check out today, which is this guitar over here, Solar A2.6 LN with Black Heaven Lundgren guitar pickups. That then goes into the Lichtlärm Audio King in Yellow, which is boosting my EVH 5153 100 watt ivory on the blue channel. That is kind of my go-to metal sound when I want to do like thick but still tight thrash stuff. That then is going to the Saint Rock React IR loadbox, the React IR 2, and then that goes back into the interface, and there I'm using an impulse response from Celestion Digital of the Creamback. So pretty cool setup, sounds absolutely amazing. This is what it sounds like. So this is a really cool sound in my personal opinion. I really love that sound. And yeah, when I'm comparing that to either one of these three modeling technologies. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna start just simply playing on the amplifier, and then at some point in time, I'm just gonna randomly go ahead and press that solo button, so that way I'm flickering around between the ToneX and the real amp. I made meticulously clear that the volumes are all the same on all of the modeling technology and the real amp. So from a volume perspective, there shouldn't be no obscuring the results and, you know, like masking your judgment to see how accurate the profiling is. That was what I wanted to say. Okay, let's play through the amp and then switch to ToneX at times. Now, first impression is that there is 100% an improvement compared to what I was used to before from ToneX. I gotta say this. I will also mention that it's still not 100% there yet. So what I am personally hearing and feeling while playing is the saturation which I was missing from the V1, let's call it V1, and this V2, from the V1 captures on ToneX. That now is there. I do feel that thick, tight saturation. I'm not missing that necessarily. What I still do feel is that the low end is a little bit bloated in regards to, you know, like the overall tightness. So, but to be very honest, if I would be in a studio and you would then mildly tweak with a multi-compressor so that we're tightening up the low end, I don't think there will be any perceivable difference. Especially not in quality. Maybe there will be a slight difference compared to the real amplifier when you're playing that one and it's ran warm for a few hours like this setup has. But, you know, notching the bass a little bit will completely change the tone more than what we are having over here. So I have to say, already on this note, great job, IQ Multimedia. This really makes the ToneX step up one more step in the right direction. Awesome stuff. Now let's go ahead and compare the profiling against each other. So I'm gonna do kind of the same test setup. I'm just gonna go over here, and when I'm doing like something on the keyboard, I can flick by pressing Control and B between the Neural Amp Modeler and ToneX. So I'm just gonna play my riffs, and at some time I'm just gonna, you know, toggle between those two plugins, basically. So let's do that. We're gonna start off with the ToneX and then move over to the Neural Amp Modeler. Now, to be honest, what I'm now hearing is that as soon as I'm engaging the neural amp modeler, I'm getting that, I would call it munch. You know, like when I'm doing, especially this over here. There's like this low end crunch which is going on when I am either on the real amp or the neural amp modeler. Try to listen exactly for what I'm talking about. These oomph, oomph. It's super hard to describe. I'm sorry for making stupid noise over here on camera. It's what I call the Mesa Mark crunch or the Metallica munch. You know, like they have this very, very unique character in tone when they have when they pull away from the fret, and there's like this squeakiness to the sound, but it's also filled and super saturated and thick. I love that type of tone. You can get that especially good out of single note riffs. Let's go back to the actual amp, and then between the neural amp modeler, back and forth. Hopefully you can also hear that even though Neural Amp Modeler makes a fantastic job in replicating the amplifier feel, it still is replicating it. And especially when I'm talking about this munch and, you know, like the saturation, the amp is unbeatable in that regard, and in my personal opinion. So that's an interesting finding because, you know, like back when Neural Amp Modeler was released, we were all super excited because it was so obviously better than the competition over here, and we have the luxury to obsess massively over these small, minute details over here. And yeah, but it's all about getting that last little bit of accuracy out of your setup. But to be very fair, all of these setups work fantastically. Let's go ahead and compare the Neural Amp Modeler setup from the locally trained session against the Tone 3000 session. They're basically the same. I cannot really discern a difference. Of course, I'm playing through the riff, so it will change over time, and there will be nuances which I kind of accentuate different while playing. But from a tonal perspective, there's no difference between doing a local training and Tone 3010 training with best fit selected and 800 epochs, and I think it ran through 500 something-ish epochs. Yeah, okay, so, however, we're here to kind of focus on on ToneX, and that really made a big step forward. Now, I could try to go ahead and maybe dial in some few minute things to kind of get the last bit of, you know, like feel and response like the real deal. Let's try that out. So gain is a little bit higher, treble is a little bit higher, bass is a little bit lower. Yeah, so there's a little bit also happening in the mids where you could maybe fine tweak a little bit, but yeah, this is really cool. A really, really strong update from IK Multimedia's side. All right, let's get to the portion which might be the most interesting for a lot of the Neural Amp modeler crowd, and that is the null testing portion. I made sure over here that I got the real amp set up over here, then ToneX, then NAM local, NAM 3000, or Tone 3000, and I got everything set up that the volume is the same, and I made this meticulously sure via the Julian Loudness Meter 2 plugin, where I just took the short-term dBu and a few other measurements and always made sure that they're exactly the same, so that way we can do actual, like semi-scientific comparisons. When it comes to null testing, what that basically means is you align two recordings exactly phase-wise so that they really align well, and then you flip the polarity of one of them, and if they cancel out completely, then they're exactly the same signal. If there's a little bit left, then there's a delta between those two, and you can kind of extrapolate the accuracy of the model by listening to the delta. So the bigger the delta, the more you are hearing and the less accurate to the original signal your capture is. What I like to do is I like to take interesting troughs and spikes of the real amp setup, and I like to compare that then against, like ToneX and NAM recordings. In this particular case, that perfectly fits, like they're all aligned at the highest spot of that waveform, and then yeah, you got the perfect alignment. Some people like to do that with the null, so they really want to go over here to where it crosses the zero. I find that not to be that accurate. As you can see over here, the null for the real amp is here pretty much, and then you still got a little bit left over there. NAM is pretty much spot on. Tone Hunt has a little bit of a shift over there, but that is natural. I'm not looking for that 100% accuracy on that particular part, because then I would shift other more important, in my opinion, things. And I'm trying to be transparent so you can be the judge whether or not you find this sufficient of a data set, of a training method or not. If I did a crucial mistake, then please let me know in the comments. If possible, let's keep it civilized. Just pinpoint me towards the mistakes which I made, but I'm sure Leo Gibson will make an awesome video where he's going to show his respective results, and he's doing that in a very scientific manner, and I think that we can trust upon. So, let me unsolo all of this stuff. So, we're now going to just run the riff in a loop, and then I am going to engage the particular modeler setups over here. Yeah, and let's listen to what the differences are. So what I could hear is, yeah, ToneX is of course very much louder than the Neural Amp modeler. That was to be expected, to be honest. However, I still find, without having a real reference, because I did not make a recording of the V1 capturing, I think that's a way better result than I got back then when I did the null testing and also did comparisons against STL Tone's tracers. So I think that we are now somewhere in the ballpark of where STL Tone tracer is, which is quite close to Neural Amp modeler and a huge improvement from what ToneX had before that, which I find really, really awesome. Now, I'm not sure what Leo Gibson's type of measurement is, what he does when it comes to presenting his numbers, you know, like where the neural lamp modeler has minus 40.8 and the Dimehead player has 40.1 or minus 40.1 dB of difference. But I think it is something in that regard that he basically went ahead and kind of extrapolated the delta between the actual amp recording and what you're then getting when doing the null test. So let's see what we got over there. So So what you could see, you know, like from a fidelity standpoint, is when you're canceling out the stuff from the real amp to ToneX, then you're getting like minus 20 dB of reduction of the entire signal level. And when you're doing the same thing with NAM instead of ToneX, then you are getting an additional 3 to 4 dB, somewhere around that ballpark. So that is kind of the delta in accuracy between ToneX and NAM. There's no real data which you can extrapolate out of that one, to be fair, or I cannot do that at least, just based on this single measurement, but it kind of gives you an idea where to place them in the ballpark. I don't have any other data. I don't have a Kemper, I don't have a quad cortex, so I cannot compare those things, but I still hope that this null test satisfies your curiosity in that regard. Really, really cool. The only thing which is missing, in my opinion, is a proper noise gate. I really, with a passion that is undescribable, hate the noise gate in the ToneX pedal, and I want dual paths. So I need one path with the IR, one path without the IR. I hope that IK Multimedia can make that happen at some point in time, because then they are back on the forefront of the game, and if they implement this even in the ToneX 1 pedal, then that would truly be a game changer, in my opinion. As much as I hate the term and everybody's sick and tired of hearing that one, if they implement that, then they have basically won the game. But as it stands right now, Neural Lamp Modeler still is king when it comes to accuracy and modeling, and when it comes to the IOs of the pedals themselves, I personally still prefer the Dimehead NAM player. That is still my go-to thing. That will not change through this update, but it's still interesting. I hope I was able to satisfy your curiosity for a null test for comparing this Neural Lamp Modeler setup against the ToneX setup from v1.10. If I made any mistakes, let me know down below. I'm trying to now get more into video creation, but I want to be involved into what I'm actually doing, like with this subject. You know, this subject is dear to my heart. I love this stuff. I also got some chorus pedals, which I really enjoy lately. I want to do a small shootout on that one, so stuff like that will be coming, but bear with me because I am only doing this as a hobbyist. Life is stressful at the moment, even though a lot of cool things happening. Yeah, but I don't want to rush it just for commercial purposes. You know, I'm a hobbyist in the end, just like you people out there, and I kind of want to convey that into my videos as well. With that all out of the way, thank you so much everybody for watching. See you in the next video. Until then, keep it metal.